Hi everybody. Yeah, I know, another shuttle video from Astronaut. But what can I say? I love the shuttle, and I miss it, and I love flying it in the simulator any chance I get. And for this flight, I'm using Orbiter 2010 Patch 1 with D3, D9 no graphics client. And we've already performed the D-orbit burn just south of New Zealand. We've just passed through entry interface at 400,000 feet and rolled left in a 40-degree angle of attack. Prior to that, from the time of deorbit burn till just a few seconds ago, we were facing straight forward, pitched straight up at 40 degrees angle of attack. But we can't stay in that orientation because as we get deeper into the atmosphere, the lift vector of the wings would tend to pull us straight up and make us skip and bounce back out of the atmosphere. But by essentially yawing the shuttle to the left and laying it over on its side, we reorient that lift vector. And this will help us maintain that 40-degree angle of attack and present that big flat barn door bottom of the shuttle toward the direction of travel. And also, by rolling left, this will help us correct our ground track back towards Cape Canaveral. And now the heat buildup from descending into that thicker air starting to generate that plasma. It's basically just freed electrons streaming around and behind the shuttle. And for this flight, we're set up for an approach at KSC to the heading alignment cylinder for runway 15, a 280-degree left overhead turn. And I'm just using short bursts of my RCS or reaction control system jets to maintain my attitude here. And that plasma trail is really starting to build up as we get into this thicker atmosphere. The force of gravity meter on the HUD data display isn't registering any G's yet as we're passing through 286,000 feet. And we're showing 16,970 mile an hour, but that'll begin to slow real quickly here. And if you check out the map on the external MFD on the upper left hand side, you can start to see that ground track swinging left toward Cape Canaveral. The two MFDs on the bottom are the GPC or general purpose computer displays. The one on the bottom left is the vertical situational indicator, and on the right is the horizontal situational indicator. The 5 lines in the center of the vertical situational indicator represent our re-entry corridor. And by adjusting our angle of attack and roll, we're going to be able to manage our energy and fly that little yellow airplane up at the top right down through that re-entry corridor. The graph on the left-hand side shows the angle of attack on the left, or alpha, and the drag we're generating on the right-hand side. But by selecting Ops 4 on the GPC MFD, we can pull up the horizontal situational indicator on the right. And under the landing site table on the left, see we have selected item 4, which is runway 15 at KSC. Underneath that is terminal area energy management target, which is our heading alignment cylinder, or HAC, the left overhead turn for runway 15. The yellow triangle at the bottom, of course, represents the space shuttle. And the 3 small yellow circles out in front of it are the computer's prediction of the aircraft's future flight path, which gets continually updated with any changes in speed and attitude. And coming up on the coast of Central America, we're going to track out along the Yucatan Peninsula, out over Cuba, and toward the southern tip of Florida.
Attitude off.
Okay, the shuttle's RCS, or reaction control system, is now inactive as the shuttle's elevons take over in the steadily thickening atmosphere. We still retain minimal use of the RCS kill rotate function, but main thrusters are inactive. And getting more and more into that dense atmosphere. You hear that wind really beginning to slow down now. You can see the G meter on the HUD data display is up to those 2 Gs. See the ground track on the map display swinging up toward Cape Canaveral. That hard left turn.
Here we go.
Most certainly would not want to be outside the shuttle right about now. Once our ground track swings up past Cape Canaveral, we'll do a roll reversal and correct back. We'll just yaw the shuttle over onto its right-hand side and track back toward KSC. Really starting to slow down quick now. The G's really starting to build up. Down to 13,000. I'm pretty sure that in reality, when they come back in, they don't get anywhere close to 7 Gs. But even so, it's certainly within the stress limits of the orbiter and the crew. Now starting to execute the other side of that big sweeping S-turn with the right-hand roll reversal. Pulling that ground track back around toward KSC. Hey, speed down to 7,800 mile an hour. Now I'm going to start easing out of the roll here, back to a forward-facing attitude. And switch my HUD back over to surface HUD. On the aero brake display in the upper right, I'm watching my ground track and my energy. The square in the center of the crosshairs inside the small graph on the right represents our landing site at KSC. The curved green line extending up from the bottom left of the graph and past our landing site is the computer predicted flight path. The end of that green line represents the point at which the shuttle will run out of energy. If the end of that line is short of the landing site, we'll run out of energy before we get there. Conversely, if the end of the green line is past the landing site, we have too much energy and could overshoot. So my goal is to adjust the pitch and roll of the shuttle to get the end of that green line to rest right on the landing site in that display.
Houston 1, the LDO IQ card, step 4. Just checking for sync config. Copy.
Man, I wish I would have remembered to turn the radio chatter off for this flight. It's a cool feature, but a bit loud at times. In the final phases now of that extreme atmospheric heating. So, by cross-referencing my aerobrake MFD and my vertical situation MFD on the lower left, I can maintain my descent profile along with my energy and ground track.
That was maneuver, Houston. Hey, bud, check out question 3. Houston, if you like that attitude, we load it in, we'll give you item 19. Okay, we'll hold off and maneuver on your call.
I'm just going to hold this attitude and make small adjustments to pitch and roll all the way into the hack. Now basically hands-off flying at this point, just using small elevon trim inputs to adjust my pitch as needed. On the vertical situation MFD, you can see us coming down through the entry corridor, showing we are within limits for our descent profile. And on the horizontal display on the right, we can start to make out the computer displayed circle representing the heading alignment cylinder off of the end of runway 15.
Houston, Discovery for step 4, LDRI TPC, you commanded sync.
Copy.
At this point, we're a minute or so away from what is known as the Terminal Area Energy Management phase of the approach. This phase of the flight is used to correct the energy and altitude of the orbiter. You can see we're still a little high and a little too fast. But since we're sure at this point we have the landing site made, we can pitch down to descend more aggressively into the denser atmosphere, which will create the necessary drag on the shuttle to bleed off some more of that extra energy.
Mike, you said you were running a little bit above our nominal water predicts. How are we doing on our cryo usage? Okay, great, thanks.
And keeping an eye on my descent profile and the vertical situation display, I see we're still high and fast as that little yellow airplane scoots on off to the high side of the display. But again, better a little too much energy than not enough. And making that left-hand turn through the heading alignment cylinder will enable us to bleed off any excess speed or altitude.
Steve, are you returning with anything? Yeah, get ahead back.
Go ahead, Jim.
You can hear that increased airflow and drag as we descend more rapidly here. And my goal here is to begin my left turn into the hack at about 37,000 feet, doing 600 mile per hour or so.
And how about a right waist tether to the forward UIAD ring?
That's complete, gate close to o'clock.
Thank you.
The crew of the shuttle would definitely not be listening to the ISS EVA comms right now. I should have killed that radio chatter. Okay, we're right on the ground track, but still have too much speed. So I'm going to crack open the boards, or speed brakes, at this point to help slow us down. And you can see we're passing over the extended runway center line for 1-5, slowing to intercept the hack for that left overhead turn. And I hit 1 instead of F1 by mistake to get back into the cockpit HUD view, which took us to one of the payload bay cameras, and I had to scramble to reopen my GPC displays and toggle the HUD back on. Whoops.
Okay, here comes the 12:22 to 12:23 time frame.
Copy.
And now intercepting the hack and beginning that left overhead turn. Still a little fast, but this turn will bleed off that excess speed. And my goal here is to exit the hack turn and roll out on final approach, doing around 420 mile per hour, about 14,000 feet or so. And just using those 3 little yellow circles of the computer predicted flight path to adjust my bank angle and pitch rate and maintain my approach through the hack.
And Nicole, we'd like to get another glove check from Steve. We heard mention that they were dirty, and we'd just like to get better visual on that. And we'd like Al to check his DCM cover.
You guys copy?
More ISS extravehicular activity comms coming through. And on energy, 90 degrees from final. The descent profile shows us coming right down through the middle of the pipe, looking good.
Okay, we were just wondering that. Here's Otto on the tap.
We can go ahead and close that VSI MFD and get it out of the way. And rolling out on final. And at around 11,000 feet, we'll pitch to about 20 degrees nose down to get on glide slope.
You are clear to land.
$2,500.
And we have 2 reds and 2 whites on our glide slope reference lights, showing we're on a good descent angle.
Okay, Otto, GPS advanced the backup.
And executing the pre-flare maneuver by initiating a gentle pitch up to reduce our sink rate.
500. 400.
At about 350 feet, we can go ahead and get the gear out.
200. 100.
Crossing over the runway threshold, we'll flare the nose up and use aerodynamic
40,
braking to further
30,
reduce our speed before touchdown.
20. 10.
The drag chute deployed. And rolling out on runway 15 KSC. And panning around, you can see the vehicle assembly building in the background there.
Will stop, Houston.
Copy, will stop. Welcome back.
And there we go. Shuttle re-entry and approach in Orbiter Spaceflight Simulator. Challenging, but a lot of fun. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.